hey there, everybody. Welcome to Gather and Go, the podcast that helps you plan, promote, and lead better trips. I'm Brian Jewell. I'm your host, and in the spirit of this season, I am so thankful that you've decided to spend some time with me today. And as always, our promise to you is that we're going to do everything we can to make this investment of your time worth your while. Now, today, I'm going to do something we don't do often on the show, and we are going to dig deep into some research. Now, you might be thinking, gee, Brian, research, that sounds kind of boring. Well, I promise you, this is research you are going to want to see. In our featured conversation, we're speaking to Lew Myers of the American Bus Association Foundation and his research partner, Omneya Fahmy, who works with tourism economics. We're going to dive in to this major new research that they have released that answers some pretty important questions about the group tour industry. Specifically, you're going to hear them talk about how big the domestic group travel industry really is. They're going to share which American destinations are punching above their weight with groups and how the current policy climate could affect the group tour business. You're going to want to hear every bit of that. Don't go anywhere. Before we get there, though, let's start with some travel news that you may have missed. NTA tour operators are optimistic about the year ahead. In a new member survey released by the National Tour Association, tour operator members indicated that sales in 2025 have been strong, and many expect them to grow stronger in 2026. 55% of tour operators said they expect to finish 2025 with stronger sales than last year, with nearly one-fourth of those saying sales would be significantly stronger. 26% have seen weaker sales, and 19% said their sales will be about the same. For next year, 61% of tour operator members expect to see sales growth over 2025, with 19% predicting growth of 10% or more. In spite of the sales optimism, though, the tour company respondents reported a variety of concerns for 2026, with 76% saying that rising costs from hotels, dining, transportation companies, and other vendors are their most significant challenge. In response to those rising supplier prices, 69% of tour companies said they're planning to raise their prices next year by 5 to 10%, and 16% said their prices will increase by 10% or more. Well, now it's time for the road tip segment of our show. This is the part of every episode where we dig deep into our bag of travel knowledge from decades on the road and bring you tips to make your next trip less stressful and more successful. You know, there are lots of amazing moments in travel, but you spend enough time in the industry, you're also going to have some awkward moments too. I always think of a time many, many years ago, this may have been like 20 years ago, when I was on a travel writing assignment. I was a young travel journalist, and I was out with a PR rep for a destination that I was touring. And towards the end of the time touring, the plan was for us to have a quick lunch together, and then I was going to hit the road and head off to the next place I was visiting. Now, this young lady, she was very kind and very professional, but bless her heart, she just did not know how to have a conversation. And I was only maybe 22 or 23 at the time, so it wasn't like I was a seasoned veteran. But obviously, sitting down to have a meal with somebody who can't keep a conversation going is an awkward experience. So I did everything I could for, the first 10 or 15 minutes of our meal to try to have a conversation with her. I would ask her questions. I would tell her stories. But every question I asked, she just gave me kind of a one-word yes or no answer. Every time I told a story, she kind of just looked at me like she didn't have anything to say in response. And so after about 15 minutes of struggling, I did the only thing I could think of. I just chose to sit there in silence. Was it awkward? You bet it was. Do I regret it? Well, I'll tell you what, if I had then the skills that I have now, I think that experience would have gone differently. And I tell you that story to get to this point. As a travel leader, one of your jobs, in addition to managing the logistics of the trip and picking destinations and pricing things, gathering money, all that. One of the main parts of your job is to make sure everyone is having the best time possible during the trip. And sometimes that means smoothing over gaps in the conversation. In fact, if there are some quiet people in your group, you might have to do the heavy lifting in terms of keeping conversation going, helping people socialize, getting those wheels started. Now, the good news is that once you do get people comfortable with each other, hopefully they are going to continue that conversation on their own and you won't always have to do it. But what I discovered after that awkward lunch with the unfortunately taciturn young lady is that I needed an arsenal of conversation topics that I could turn to when I didn't know what else to say. Well, over the years, I have developed a bunch of them. I got a whole slew of go-to questions that I ask people when I first meet them, when we're in the middle of a long meal or something like that, when there's not an obvious thing we need to discuss, or simply when I want to know more about them. So I thought I would use the road tip time today to just share some of my go-to topics with you in case they might be helpful for you the next time you have to keep a conversation going with someone in your travel group. So here you go. These are going to be rapid fire. If you need to keep a conversation going with somebody, you can ask them, where have you been recently? As in, where have you traveled? Or where are you going next? You can ask, where would you go if you could go anywhere? Or maybe ask them about their favorite travel memory. Changing directions from travel, you could ask them about their kids or their grandkids or their pets. People love talking about those topics. If it's a certain time of year, like this time of year, you could ask them about their holiday plans, ask them about their summer plans. You can ask about the highlight of their career, especially if they maybe aren't working anymore or not working as much. That's something they would probably enjoy reflecting on and talking about. Other ideas, you could ask how they met their spouse or significant other. Ask about their preferences in books, movies, TV shows, anything like that. Ask them about their favorite food or maybe their least favorite food memories. The list goes on and on and on. But here's the real key to keeping a great conversation going. When you find some common ground, then stop in that place and really dig in, double down on that topic. So you don't want the conversation to be a constant flow of you asking random questions and them answering it. What you're trying to do is ask some questions where you can find a place where you have some common ground with them and you can discuss further. When you find that place, that is your in. That's your opening. That's how you discover what makes this person tick and how you can delight them in conversation with you and maybe even in the kinds of travel experiences you deliver for them on this trip or on future trips. Whatever you do, remember, as a group leader, the onus is on you to keep things socially comfortable. And so even if nobody else knows what to say, you need to be the person that has a plan for the conversation. Hopefully now you've got some ideas about how you can do that. That is your road tip of the week. Well, I was at a travel conference just last week and got the chance to have dinner with a couple of my friends from Group Collect. We had a great time together and it got me to thinking, I need to make sure that you know what a great asset Group Collect is for you and your travel business. If you don't already know Group Collect, they are a group travel tech company that was started by a travel leader and is staffed by actual industry veterans, like the people I had dinner with at a tourism conference last week. Now, what do? They create easy-to-use online platforms that really help take the pain out of organizing group trips. Here at the Group Travel Leader, we recently started using their Group Collect Register product to help us organize a lot of the logistics for our on-site familiarization trips. And I got to tell you, I really loved working with that product. It was super simple, helped us accept registrations. You can use it to process payments, all kinds of details. And the best part is you don't need any special tech skills to get this going. If you can use a web browser, you can use this platform. They also have a really fantastic support team that offers one-on-one help anytime you've got a question about anything. You email them, you call them, and before you know it, you were on a Zoom with them and they were walking you through your issue. There's also a really cool product in the works that you can expect to see coming out in 2026 called Group Collect Ops. And this is going to be a place travel planners can do everything from generating trip quotes and sending RFPs to even paying suppliers online. Now, if you're interested in learning more about how Group Collect can help you streamline your travel operations, you can do that right now by visiting groupcollect.com/gatherandgo. Just fill out the form there and you will be connected with a team member right away. Once again, that's groupcollect.com/gatherandgo. Reach out to Group Collect today and plan group travel better. Well, it's just about time for us to get into our featured conversation with Lew Myers and Omneya Fahmy. Before we do, let me remind you that you can find a wrap-up of some of the most important things they had to say in the show notes for this episode. I'll also pop back on after the interview is finished to share some of those really key things that they reported, just to make sure you don't miss them. And I hope you will stick around to the end of that wrap-up, because after that's over, I'm going to ask the question, what is it that's missing from the international travel experience today? I've got one key thing in mind. That's the topic of today's Hot Minute. You won't want to miss that. We'll be right back with Lew Myers and Omneya Fahmy. All right, everybody. My guests today are the driving forces behind a groundbreaking new study documenting the economic impact of motor coach group travel in the United States. Lew Myers is Director of Research Policy and Impact at the ABA Foundation, the philanthropic and policy arm of the American Bus Association. Omneya Fahmy is Senior Economist at Tourism Economics, where she uses data-driven insights to help major tourism organizations make strategic decisions. Lew and Omneya, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Brian.
Hi, Brian.
So I'm excited to dig into the details of this economic impact report. This is maybe the most comprehensive study I've seen on the economic impact of our industry in more than 20 years. So I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to hear from you, Lew, kind of what the impetus was for doing the study. What were the key questions you were hoping to answer?
Thank you again, Brian, for having us. The Economic Impact Report was really part of a 3-study initiative that we mapped out last year. Just to go back a little bit, earlier on February 1st, we decided to get ahead of the curve, understanding that the administration might roll out some tariffs. And so we created a game plan and our first report that addressed what a 25% tariff would have on our Canadian manufacturers, which are Prevost and MCI. We were able to get ahead of the curve on that and actually take that data to Capitol Hill. And we're able to create an exclusion for our members, which ended up saving them millions of dollars on tariffs, and subsequently was able to avoid any hiccups in the supply chain. Our second study was the Sustainability and Innovation Report, which really showed how much more efficient motor coach are compared to other modes of transportation. In many ways, 10 times cleaner than transit. We have the lowest per passenger mile of CO2 emissions. And really, on average, what's really exciting is that each motor coach removes up to 30 cars from the road. So not only do we have a positive environmental impact, but we're also helping reduce congestion mitigation. And then that led up into our third project, which was the Economic Impact Report. And the whole goal behind all of these research initiatives is to really add value to our members. And so this analysis really showed the positive downstream effects of the motor coach industry on the broader economy. And one note that you mentioned earlier is that we do capture group travel, but we're excited to add a supplemental report that's actually going to be released next month. So I guess breaking news, where we have scheduled service that we're going to incorporate into that data set. So in terms of adding more value to our members and the industry, moving forward, we will have both group travel and scheduled service in this economic impact report. And then one of the most exciting things is the new interactive map that we were able to create this year, which allows any individual to go to our website, buses.org, buses .org. You can click on your state all the way down to your congressional district, and you can really mine and see how valuable the motor coach industry is to your particular area. So really excited about the work that Omneya and I have been able to do, and looking forward to more projects in 2026.
Yeah, that map especially is just phenomenal. I've spent some time playing around with that, and the granularity that you can get, as you mentioned, breaking it down by congressional district is really fantastic. You can see all kinds of data in terms of number of passengers and economic impact for your city in some cases, if you're in a big city. So that is really, really helpful. I am curious to hear your thoughts on what you think some of the big headlines are. I certainly know what numbers stood out to me, but I'd love to hear you say, what the key takeaways were that really jumped out to you when you got the data.
Well, I think simply put, Brian, this report really confirms that buses bring business.
Mm-hmm.
Through the analysis, we see that the motor coach industry has a $90 billion economic impact. We support over 540,000 jobs. We've contributed $16 billion to the federal government in forms of taxes. And also, we've created over $30 billion in wages and salaries. This really goes to show that, unlike airlines and trains, the motor coach industry touches every state, every county, every city, every district, every urban and rural community. And we move over 400 million passengers a year. So we are a critical component to the movement of America. We also understand that we play a critical role with moving our servicemen and women. We have a vital role when it comes to working with the military and the Department of Defense. And when we have natural disasters in this country, the federal governments, both state and federal, partner and contract with our operators to move our citizens and vital resources. So we are a critical component to the chain of transportation in this country, and really just excited to amplify all the work that's being done in the motor coach space.
Yeah, that $90 billion number is really attention grabbing. I've known for a long time that group travel and motor coach travel is important, but actually seeing a number that big attached to it just really reinforced something that a lot of us have known kind of intuitively, is that this is a big industry. And it is, in fact, very big. And I'm super happy that we have that data to share now. Omneya, what did you find in the data that was surprising? Or was it pretty much just confirming of conventional wisdom?
I would say it was a confirmation to what we've known about the motor coach sector, but the sheer magnitude of the multiplier effect was certainly very powerful. We've always known that motor coaches deliver high yield visitors, and the numbers back this up. Each dollar in direct spending by motor coach groups generated more than double in business sales when you factor in the ripple effects. Another sort of compelling confirmation is where that money goes, the breakdown of that money between the different sectors. So the data showed us that the food and beverage industry and retail are major beneficiaries. And so this is a good confirmation to know that motor coach travelers are hitting local restaurants and shops and injecting cash directly into Main Street economies. Some areas might not be serviced by other forms of transportation. And so it's very helpful to know that that the sector supports their local businesses to thrive.
Yeah, can you give us a little more insight into what it might be about these group travelers that makes them such high contributors to the communities they're visiting, as opposed to people traveling individually or by other modes of transportation?
Group travel in general tends to have a large spending impact. It's the nature of the trip. It's the nature of that the kind of the trip and the spending that it ignites, basically.
Tell us a little bit about your methodology. How did the research team collect the data? How do you compile it? What makes you feel confident that it is accurate?
So it's our data collection process was multifaceted and coming from several sources. So first of all, the data is grounded in the motor coach census survey. This was critical for capturing the supply side of the equation. So our team collected detailed operational and travel data from motor coach operators across the country as part of our annual census. This survey provided us with the necessary inputs for operational expenditures, like vehicle mileage, fleet size, the type of the trip, etc. And so these figures established the operational spending that initiates that economic chain reaction. That's one side of the equation. Now let's talk about the demand side, the traveler spending. This data we were able to get from Longwoods International. And so it provides us with detailed, verified information about the traveler spending patterns, broken down by key categories like lodging, retail and recreation, dining, etc. And so using this to estimate the spending of our motor coach group travelers ensured that our direct spending figures are based on a widely accepted independent measure of tourism behavior and expenditure. And going back to your earlier question about group spending, so this data was very particular to group travelers using a motor coach as their form of transportation. So it really it captured the spending pattern of this specific group. Now we've taken all of this and we've added several layers of sort of verification to it. Our company does tourism economic impact studies for more than half the states in the US, and we compile all available information for all states. And so we've been able to use this sort of economic baseline data to verify and check and integrate with the data that we've collected. And we've also, using that, we've been able to accurately customize and calibrate the spending profiles and the multiplier calculations to reflect the unique economic structure, the wage rates, and the commodity flows within each state.
And so that's how you're able to say, here's the direct spend, and then here's our projection for total economic impact and the ripple effects.
Exactly. And that's how one state differs from another. That's how one district differs from another. It's every region has its own unique economic structure. And so the money injected into the economy generates a different impact, basically.
So, Lew, this feature of the statewide breakdown and even the district-wide breakdown is so helpful. I'm wondering if, as you guys put this together, you found any states or districts that are maybe outperforming expectations that maybe aren't on the tip of people's tongues when they talk about travel, but when you looked at it, you say, "Holy cow, these people are doing awesome with groups."
Yeah, well, we found the 5 leading states. No surprise, California's up there, or Texas. Surprisingly, New Jersey is punching above its weight in addition to Massachusetts. And my home state of North Carolina kind of rounded out the top 5. So excited to see those. And, while New York and California, have some of the largest absolute impact, states like North Carolina and Tennessee, they might show a higher concentration of motor coach supported jobs relative to its overall employment base. So that's, as you mentioned earlier, some of the granular data that we can take away, particularly when we talk to lawmakers and go to their particular states and districts and talk about ways to reinvest in these industries. So excited about what this powerful tool is able to do. And it's also a benchmark for other states to say, okay, what are some of these larger states doing that's creating more impact than we are? And so they can use it as an opportunity to grow and develop with their budgetary.
Yeah. I also frankly think it's an opportunity for some of these states that don't invest a lot of resources or time, staff effort, marketing dollars in the group market to say, hey, wait a minute, people are actually interested in coming here. If we're doing this well without marketing, imagine what could happen if we really threw our weight behind this. So great data there. Omneya, do you have any benchmarks or reference points that we can compare this to in other tourism segments? You guys obviously don't only focus on groups. So how does this compare to other parts of the industry? Where do we stack up?
Yep. So let's talk about the $90 billion economic output. This obviously is a big number.
Yeah.
And it puts the motor coach group travel sector firmly among the essential segments of the US travel and tourism sector. According to newly released estimates by Airbnb, this is actually around the same figure of economic impact of Airbnb in the US in 2024.
Wow.
Yes, that's a nice headline.
Yeah.
So that's from one aspect. You could also take it from another angle. The 560,000 jobs that the motor coach group travel sector supports. This is similar. This is comparable to the employment economic impact of the Port of New York and New Jersey, for example.
Wow.
So it shows you that motor coach group travel is a mass market economic engine for communities. It's not a niche player in the travel and tourism sector.
Yeah, I love that. So, Lew, you are, intimately involved in our space. You know the players. You know the people who are, thinking about tourism marketing every day. How do you think they can best use this data to advance the destinations that they are trying to market?
Yeah, I think one of the groups that this study really can influence are our DMOs and our CVBs, our destination marketing organizations, and our convention and visitor bureaus. I think when you're having budgetary discussions and strategy about where to invest time, dollar, and resources, I think our economic impact report is critical to be at the front line of those conversations. To your point earlier, if you're a state who might not be in the top 10, how can you have the conversation and use this data to help grow your state overall? And, it's also a way to determine where additional resources can be invested to grow locally. I think when we went to Capitol Hill and really talked to members of Congress, it really kind of took them aback to see, okay, well, as a state, we might be pumping overall, but my congressional district isn't getting as much of attention as some of these larger districts. And so we want this to be a comprehensive tool. And one special thing about the foundation is that all of our research is public.
Mm.
There are no firewalls. There are no buy-ins. You go to buses.org and you can access all of our research projects. And we want our users, both members and non-members, to take advantage of these resources that we're investing in from an industry standpoint. And so I think that's one of the special things that allows us to be world-class in working with tourism economics to produce these valuable and worthwhile studies that are really more evergreen than anything else and can be used into perpetuity. And so as we continue to build on into 2026, we'll always have updated and relevant data for our DMOs, CVBs, congressional offices, and really just anybody who is in the travel and tourism space who wants to learn how to grow and develop their business.
Yeah, I love that. And, one of the thoughts that I'm having as you say that is these travelers are going to travel whether you market to them or not as a state or as a destination. The question is whether they come to you. So you can say, oh, well, we think groups are dying, which clearly they're not dying. That's a song and dance I've been hearing for 20 years and it's never been true. We think group travel's dying. Group travel's not very, fashionable. It's not the hot thing. We don't want to invest our money in that. Well, the money is going to go somewhere. The customers are going to go somewhere. And if you ignore the market, they might go to the state next door. That is your heaviest competitor. They might go across the country. They may go out of the country. And in part, it's your fault for not reaching out to them because these people are ultimately going to go where they know they are wanted. So in terms of the foundation, Lew, and kind of your work in tandem with ABA, how are you going to use this data to kind of approach your work in the coming year and the conversations you're having with policymakers and stakeholders and folks like that?
Great question, Brian. Data is critical to shaping the narrative for our industry. And one of the principal ways we'll be able to use this data is in our advocacy efforts on Capitol Hill. Having been a former staffer on Capitol Hill for over 10 years, I understand the value of quantifiable data and its ability to tell a story. These elected officials are the very lawmakers who create the laws that govern our industry. So our ability to use this powerful tool to advance the ball is extremely critical. At the foundation, we invest money, time, resources into these reports because in order to continue to be a world-class, credible hub for data, we have to lead and set the mark for our members and our industry partners and stakeholders. So for anyone who's listening to this podcast and wants to get involved, feel free to reach out and make a contribution. I like to tell folk investing in the ABA Foundation is not an act of kindness, but a strategy for change. And so happy to leave my information behind for anyone who wants to follow up. If you have any questions regarding the data or research projects and or what we have coming down the pipe in 2026, happy to engage. And, any operators, group travel, if you're not a member of ABA, we like to bring you under the tent because these are the type of resources that we provide, no cost, as a result of being a partner and being aligned with the American Bus Association and our foundation. So again, extremely grateful, Brian, to have this platform. So thank you again, and happy to continue the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. Now, Omneya, 2024 was a great year to study something like this because there weren't major disruptions in tourism on the level of some of what we've seen, unfortunately, in 2025. So I'm curious, I know it's hard to say, what is going to end up happening this year, but I'm curious if you have a sense for whether these numbers that you found are going to fluctuate a lot, whether you think they're going to be pretty steady, and especially if you see policy issues like the tariffs, like the visa issues that we've been seeing. Do you see those having an impact on what these numbers might look like for 2025 or beyond?
Yeah. So the multiplier effect, we've been discussing that magic 2.25 number. Guess what? It works both ways. So any change in travel volume, in group size, that's going to impact the economic output of the sector. So yes, policy changes will create sizable changes. Lew referred earlier to the study that we did earlier in the year to evaluate the effect of the proposed tariffs. Now, what the tariffs do is that they increase the capital and operating costs for motor coach companies. They could result in a reduction in fleet renewal, higher ticket prices, and potentially a decrease in service. So when we factored all of these in, we figured out that potentially this could cause a $3.1 billion reduction in economic output. And in terms of employment, that's more than 40,000 jobs. That's not taking into account any negative sentiment from people not wanting to come in or any economic changes within the US that would affect traveler spending. So there you go. That's tariffs. Talking about visas and border policy, it's the same thing. A portion of the of motor coach group travel is from inbound international tourists. And so a reduction in those numbers means a reduction of the money coming in. And so, it's a direct and measurable loss of economic impact.
So if you ran the same study, 6 months from now, looking at 2025, the significant drop in visitation from Canada, for instance, would show up in these numbers in a noticeable way.
And what is going to be particularly interesting is seeing the changes in the states that are particularly vulnerable to changes like that, states on the border. This is going to be something we're looking for in next year.
Yeah. Well, it's fascinating to see how these policy things we read about in the newspaper have actual dollars and cents impacts in our industry. And as you said, they have employment impacts. 14,000 jobs lost just to tariffs is certainly a tragedy and something I think we can all hope we're able to see a reversal on. So this has been super helpful. I want to make sure people know how to, number one, get the report. Number two, reach out to both of you, follow you, engage in your work. So, Lew, I know you said buses.org is where the report is. What else should people do if they want to connect with you, follow you on social or otherwise engage with what you're doing?
Absolutely. And that's BUSES plural.org, buses.org. If anyone needs to get in contact with me via email, that is L Myers, so LMYERS at buses.org. And you can find me on LinkedIn as well under Lew Myers III. And so happy to engage and answer any questions from the audience.
Yeah, excellent. Omneya, what about you? How can people reach out to you, find you, follow what you're doing?
So many ways. So our website is tourismeconomics.com. You can also find me on LinkedIn, and my email is Fahmy, Fahmy at oxfordeconomics.com.
Excellent. We're going to put links to all of those in the show notes. So listeners, you don't have to grab a pen and try to frantically write all that down. Just go to the show notes, click through, and you can find these two great people on multiple platforms. Before we let you go, we have some questions we ask everybody, and these are just for fun. So no pressure. You can just kind of give me the first answer that comes to mind. Lew, we'll start with you. When you book travel, do you book window seats or aisle seats?
Window.
Yeah. What's the thought process there?
I love being on the right side of the plane leaving DC, where you can catch the Capitol, the Mall, the Washington Monument. And it's pretty special when it's a nice clear day. And so I usually try and book early to get that right window seat.
I love that. That is a great answer. What about you, Omneya?
It's such a great answer. You're going to be disappointed in mine. So I like the window seat, but it's just mainly for comfort. I have something additional to sleep. So
yeah,
there you go. Sorry, it's not as good as an answer.
No, listen, are you one of those people that can fall asleep just on any plane, anytime?
I don't. It's just that I get motion sickness, so I end up being medicated, and so I have to doze off for the entire flight.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that makes sense. All right. Next question. What is one thing in your carry-on that you wouldn't travel without? Lew, we'll start with you.
I would say my my brush. I like to try to keep the waves going a little bit here. So I like to. My mom always told me, "Did you brush your hair before you go out to school and church?" So the brushes outside of the toothbrush, the hairbrush is the next thing that goes into the travel bag. So hard for me to leave home without it.
Yeah. If you're not watching on YouTube, Lew has got it just expertly coiffed. So it's important to keep it that way. What about you, Omneya? Your hair looks great too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, makeup and jewelry.
Yeah.
And I have done it in the past to forget my makeup bag, and it was a disaster. So I've learned not to.
I can relate to you. There have been times where one time I forgot my entire toiletry bag, and I literally had to leave the conference and go to like a Rite Aid a few blocks away and get some essentials. So that's stuff you just can't miss. Omneya, if you had a free airline pass and a week with nothing else to do, where would you be headed next?
Cairo. I'm Egyptian, and it's always very nice to go back home.
Yeah, that's lovely. What about you, Lew?
I've always wanted to go to Fiji. As a golfer, obviously I followed Tiger Woods. Vijay Singh was also one of my favorite golfers, and he was a Fijian. Always thought it was just beautiful to be out in the oceanic countries. So that is on the bucket list.
Yeah, absolutely. Both of those places are actually on my bucket list. So either of you that gets that opportunity, let me know.
There you go.
I'll find a way to tackle it. Yeah, exactly. Let's see, Lew, what is one thing you have seen or done on the road that you wish you could go back and experience again with somebody you love?
Wow. I'll take a different approach. I think one of the cool things that's been full circle in my life and in my career is I remember in 7th grade taking that bus trip from Durham, North Carolina to DC for the nation's capital. You know, every student hopefully gets an opportunity to do that road trip. And so I remember those experiences and those times listening to CDs, hanging out with your friends, and now to actually be working in the bus and motor coach travel space is really full circle. I pinched myself. I never thought it would be like this, but when I first joined, I said, wow, I instantly went back to 7th grade when we used to take those field trips, not only to get out of school, but to experience some cool things with friends. So yeah, very special.
That is so special. That class trip to DC in middle school
Class trip.
was also
That's
my
right.
introduction to group travel. And I loved it. I thought it was the greatest thing ever. So the fact that here I am as an adult and have worked in that industry for years and years is just a, total mind blowing blessing. So I love your answer. Omneya, I'm going to give you the last word. Same question. Something you've seen or done on the road that you wish you could experience again with somebody you love.
I've taken a group trip with my work colleagues from Vancouver to Whistler, and the drive is just so scenic. I would absolutely do it again.
Oh my gosh, British Columbia.
Yes.
Totally one of the most gorgeous parts of North America. And there's a lot of gorgeous parts. So I completely agree. Anybody who has the opportunity to drive through the mountains there, you've got to take it. Absolutely. Well, you all, this has been so helpful. I can't thank you enough for joining us, Lew and Omneya. I hope you have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
Well, I hope you got a lot out of that conversation with Lew and Omneya. I know I certainly did. And I know I came away really encouraged about the health of the group travel industry. I want to review a couple of the major points that we talked about in that conversation just to make sure you don't miss how big this really is. When I asked Lew to give us the big headlines from their research project, he said, "This report confirms that buses bring business. The motor coach industry has $90 billion in economic impact. We support over 540,000 jobs. We contribute $16 billion to the federal government in the form of taxes, and we have created over $30 billion in wages and salaries." He went on to say, "This really goes to show that unlike airlines and trains, the motor coach industry touches every state, every county, every city, every urban and rural community, and we move over 400 million passengers a year." I love this data so much. And I'm going to tell you, I've been covering the group travel industry for over 20 years, and this is probably the best and most comprehensive set of data I have ever seen on the impact of our industry. And it also makes a point that I've been making, well, I don't know, maybe 20 years or so. And that is, despite what the haters say, despite what the naysayers may claim, group travel is not dying. It's not going anywhere. In fact, it is thriving, more healthy than ever. And when you combine this with the research that we shared in today's news item from the National Tour Association, people who work in group travel are more optimistic than ever about the future of this industry. That is a very good thing. Now, when I asked Omneya about how these numbers compare to other parts of the travel industry, she said, "The $90 billion economic output is a big number, and it puts the motor coach group travel sector firmly among the essential segments of the U.S. travel and tourism sector. According to newly released estimates by Airbnb, this is actually around the same figure of economic impact of Airbnb in the U.S. in 2024. I love that as a point of comparison. I think most of us have stayed in an Airbnb at one point or another, or certainly we know many people who have. And this is a great way for us to communicate to decision makers and policymakers, not only on the national level, but even in our own communities, how important this segment of the industry is. You wouldn't want to see Airbnb go away from your town or community. You wouldn't want to see it go away from your state. You wouldn't want to see it go away from our country. It supports way too many jobs and way too many families and way too many other industries for us to simply lose it. Of course, we're not in danger of losing Airbnb, but if our leaders don't make wise decisions in the policy arena, then it could have a really negative impact on that domestic group travel spending, not to mention inbound international group travel spending. So just like we can't afford to lose Airbnb, we cannot afford to lose group travel. We can't afford to underinvest in group travel. We can't afford to overlook group travel. It is an absolutely critical component of the tourism ecosystem in the United States. And finally, when I asked Omneya if these numbers might change under the political circumstances and policy environment that we are experiencing now, she said, "The multiplier effect works both ways." any change in travel volume, in group size, that's going to impact the economic output of the sector. So policy changes will create sizable changes in the data. She went on to say that the current tariff regime could cause a $3.1 billion reduction in economic output. And she said that doesn't even include negative traveler sentiment. She also said that tariffs could lead to 14,000 jobs lost in tourism. You know, every now and then, I think it's healthy to put aside the feelings of whatever political tribe we subscribe to and stop and ask ourselves if a certain policy or a certain way of thinking or way of doing things is having a positive impact in the life that we live and the business that we're in. And so no matter how you feel about the current leadership in Washington, no matter how you feel about the tariffs, whether they're a good idea, whether they're a bad idea, whether they're even constitutional, I hope you will take a moment and wrestle with that data. The current tariff regime could be doing serious damage to the group travel industry. That means billions of dollars in reduced economic impact. It means tens of thousands of lost jobs in tourism. So if that's still a policy you support, you better have a really strong reason, because our industry is feeling the pain along with so many others. Really important data there from Lew and Omneya. Well, as I mentioned earlier, last week I was at a tourism conference. This one happened to be up in Canada. And as I was traveling to and from that conference, I noticed just how much technology has changed the experience of crossing international borders. Now, I've traveled to countries on every continent all over the world and have spent a lot of time crossing borders over the last 20 years. And man, has the experience changed. And as I thought about that, it got me to thinking, I wonder if all this change is a good or a bad thing. We're going to talk about that in today's Hot Minute. Yeah, that's right. The Hot Minute is the portion of the show where I take 60 seconds to give you my unfiltered views on an issue that impacts tourism every day. Today, we're going to ask the question, has modern technology made international travel better or worse? So let's put 60 seconds on the clock and get into it. If you ask me, modern technology has made international travel so much better. I can remember spending hours waiting to clear immigration checkpoints. But on my recent international trips, that process has been faster than going through a TSA screening. Now, a lot of this has to do with chip-enabled passports, facial recognition technology, mobile customs apps. The difficult part of international travel has been digitized, removing so much hassle from the process. There's just one thing missing, though. That is the passport stamp. In the past, a book full of colorful stamps from exotic places was the international traveler's badge of honor. Today, though, you could cross a dozen borders without any inky evidence to show for it. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that border crossing has become easier. But there's part of me that will always miss that old-fashioned passport stamp. Well, that's the Hot Minute. That's how I see things anyway. Of course, as always, you are welcome to disagree with me, and we can still be friends. And hey, whether you agree or disagree, we would love to hear from you. You can send your thoughts, your questions, or your decommissioned passports to podcast@grouptravelleader.com. I read every email that comes into that account. I really do love hearing from you. And hey, you never know. Your ideas might just be the topic of the next Hot Minute. And while you're in the mood to give us some feedback, would you do me a big favor? Would you go to your favorite podcast playing app? And if you haven't already subscribed to the show, then do that while you're there. If you could also give us a rating and leave us a review, those would be so helpful. And I am sincerely grateful to everyone who has done that so far. My thanks as well to Lew Myers and Omneya Fahmy for joining me today. On the next episode, I'm going to bring you a fascinating conversation with Dan Flores of Satisfy Labs, who's going to tell us all about how AI is poised to revolutionize your travel business. You're not going to want to miss that. Until then, though, remember this. At the end of the day, we're all on this trip together, so let's make it a good one. See you next time on Gather and Go. Gather and Go is hosted and executive produced by me, Brian Schul. Our publisher is Mac Lacey. Our creative team includes Danya Simmons, Ashley Ricks, and Rachel Crick. Our sales team is Talisa Reck and Ashley DeLucia. To advertise on the podcast, call Talisa at 859-253-0455. Gather and Go is a production of the Group Travel Leader. For more information on our podcast, magazines, and events, visit us online at grouptravelleader.com.